Okay, folks, y'all have been asking me about this Ancestry.com thing and what I've managed to find out on the Prize Gota side. And here's kind of what I'm going to show you. And there's not much that I have found, um, certainly on Grandpop's side. In fact, the entirety of it, as you can see here, that's it. That's all I've been able to find. Apparently, the records in Poland are quite bad. Whether or not the war or the language barrier or whatever, most of it, according to, I guess, one of the other cousins I spoke with, said that this is, you have to dig through old paper church records. And I guess genealogy isn't as big of a thing over there, so I don't think that there's any kind of major database that's been put together on it yet. However, when we talk about grandmom's side, that's when we get into some interesting things. And this is all going off of what Ancestry.com has told me and what I've been able to piece together and try to cross-check. So the first thing you'll notice about Ancestry is these little leaves, and that's like a hint that they have a hint that you haven't reviewed about the person. So arguing that I have the right birth and death dates for these people, then this is definitely grandmom's father and mother. Then you're able to dig into who their parents were and who their parents' parents were, and so on and so forth. So if I click on James, it gives me a birth, a date, a town, a county, a state, and a death date. If you click on his profile, it'll tell you birth. He had apparently had a half sister in 1903, another half brother, a bunch of half brothers, the death of his father, and then when he started to have kids, and also if he's ever moved or when he's gotten married. Um, and then it tells you who his parents were, who his wife and who his children were. So if it doesn't have dates on there, it's because the records aren't complete. So you'll see these things over here too, where he's in someone else's family tree, or there's a record. And for example, this is the federal census. And if we click on this, it gives us all the statistical information on Fillmore Street in Camden, New Jersey. Went to the 4th grade. And then you can click on this and actually look at the record. And they've taken the thing and highlighted these columns. So that would be him. Okay. And let's see, there's Virginia, daughter, right there. There's grandma. And she was, looks like she was 16 at the time, single, attended school or college, no, first year of high school at that time, New Jersey, place of birth code, same house. And says she was working as a sales girl. And this was in 1940. So that's kind of how this system works. So anyway, going back, I'm going to go back to the tree and kind of show you what I've found out. So when you dig into grandmom's father's family tree, his father was George Walter Murphy, and his grandmom's great grandmother was Lavinia Dayton, and Lavinia Dayton is how we get to Michael Garot or Garut. Okay, and he was the son of Admiral Antoine Garut right here, who was a admiral in the French Navy back before the Revolutionary War. As you can see, he died in 1760. So if we click on him, tells us he was born in 1750 in Marseille, Côte d'Azur, France, and then he died in 1829 in Pleasant Mills, New Jersey. It's kind of an interesting story about him. He had given a ton of money to the Revolutionary War folks with the Continental Congress, and he was trying to get his money back, and because he died penniless on the way back to his hotel after arguing with I think the governor of Pennsylvania. But anyway, here is one of the other relatives in the tree somewhere, not in ours. Filed for him for the Sons of the American Revolution membership application, and this was in. Let's see if we view the image here. Reverend Donald Wayne Hinkle. I don't know how he figures in. Descendant of Michael Garrote, privateer in the New Jersey Navy. So basically, this guy came over, and during the Revolutionary War, he was a pirate, boarding ships and stealing, material. So here's some information. His service is recorded in the following records: D.R. Patriot Index, French and American History of Michael Garrote and His Descendants by Babington Garrote, Alhambra, blah, 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 blah. There's a couple books on it. So it'll be interesting to find out. Apparently this guy lived in Santa Barbara, California. Interesting. So we can go back and so we're going to look at this other thing. This is a notes. This is him living in Gloucester, New Jersey. Notes on Old Gloucester County. Old Gloucester County. Let's see, where is it? I don't see Michael Garrote on here. Oh, there it is. Subscriber names right there. Okay, so now here's an interesting thing. This is a newspaper article about Michael Garrote being a friend of Lafayette. You can see here Michael Greer is another descendant of this guy. So, previous Michael, family named Michael Garrote, born in Marseille, France, son of Admiral Sir Antoine Garrote and his wife, the Lady Anne de Lascour. Young Michael came to this country with the Marquis de Lafayette, bringing with him 3 of his father's ships and $90,000 in gold, which the family contributed to the infant nation. So sometime after he arrived, Michael was riding through southern New Jersey, part of a Continental officer's luck would have it, they chanced on some British. Sword fight ensued. Michael was slashed across the side of his head. He fell from his horse and was left for dead alongside the road. A Quaker innkeeper came along, returning from Valley Forge, stopped his cart, looked at the Frenchman, found he was still alive. So they took him home and they nursed him back to health, and he married the Quaker innkeeper's daughter. So Michael Garrote, faithful to his country but not to his church. Interesting. The original entry in the body, there was a very strong-minded Quakeress who denied even one of his 12 children to the church of his fathers. That's interesting. 2 sisters who were ladies in waiting to the Queen of France, Marie Antoinette. When word of his marriage was transmitted, the Queen sent an exquisite present to the young Quaker bride, tiny sewing kit. I mean, this is interesting stuff. That we're that close to these historical things. So he walked all the way to Tennessee to visit his daughter, who married this guy, who I think he was a pretty big deal. Let's see here. there's another article about him that talks about him dying on the side of the road of sickness. But he was a big deal, and his father was a big deal, and apparently his sisters were big deals too. So that's one. Let's go back to the tree. So this, you can tell kind of who, what these people did by their names when you get far back enough. Like this Angelique de Pistre means that somewhere back in the line is a pastry maker. So here's Sophia Smith. Here's the Quaker innkeeper that saved Michael's life. And then here is the line going back from him, Richard Townsend, Thomas Townsend. When these folks came over, see, this guy was born in England, and he died in 1670 in New York. So this line came over in the 1650s, my guess. This one's a little bit different. New Jersey. This guy came over sometime between 1650 and 1760. Now, what's interesting is you see these things where it says potential mother. So what you do is you click on it. It says, we think we found a mother for Mary Townsend. And they're saying Ruth Marvin, spouse and children, Richard Townsend, 1671 to 1739. Now, this is different because you can see over here it says 1671 to 1747, so the death dates don't line up. But you have to look at some of these other things. See, here's a Mary Townsend, 1716 to 1780, which doesn't match this Mary. So is there another Mary down in here? No. So we don't. So we're just going to list that as a maybe. Now we go over here and go potential father for Mary Moyer, Humphrey Moyer, Mary E. Moyer, 1685 to 1730. That does match the birth and death dates for this. Thirlby by born England. So that will add that to that. So now we have a potential mother. And this is all we see how the different variations of the spelling of the name. So we added that in. Now we're going to look at the Schofields. This is all I have on the Schofield side. It doesn't go back much further than that. Still waiting on records to come in. Now, here we are, grandmom, her mother, and her mother's father, her grandfather, William Eldon shown. This is where we get into the Declaration of Independence and the connection to Timothy Matlack. So, following this through Josephina Ann Beebe, the Beebes, Leonard Beebe's mother was Anna Matlack. So, we go back through Arthur Matlack. Now, here's William Matlack, and here's this William Matlack. This William Matlack is Timothy Matlack's brother. So, we look at this. Okay, now here's this Timothy Matlack. This is the Timothy Matlack who wrote the Declaration of Independence father. So you click on this. You see over here Colonel Timothy Matlack. This is the dude that actually put pen to paper and wrote the Declaration of Independence. And he had a brewery right next down to Constitution Hall or Independence Hall, rather. And he apparently a lot of the people that were involved with the Declaration of Independence drank at his tavern, and knew that he was also a political guy. He was actually a pretty smart guy, from everything I've been able to find out about him. So here's this connection. So he's kind of our first cousin 10 times removed. So here's the first cousin. Father, father, son, 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 daughter, blah, blah, blah. So here's the relationship. So when you want to look at whether or not somebody served in the Revolutionary War, you kind of look at their birth date. See, here's William Matlack, and we're going to look at him. See, here's all of his sons and daughters, but I don't think there's any record of him. See, we're looking here, Quaker meeting. See, he was a Quaker. There's all these Quakers that didn't participate. So here's Sons of the American Revolution application right here. So this is Anne Antrim Matlock, Mary Turner, children William Matlock. So you have to look at the dates. Massachusetts soldiers and sailors. Pension was on file. Revolutionary War Secretary. His pension was allowed. Distributed from the Secretary of the Commonwealth, Boston, Massachusetts. William Matlock or Matlack. Problem is that these dates may not match up. Okay, so you kind of have to look at Matlack versus Matlock. So we're just going to leave that as a maybe. So when we go back to the tree, and then we can look at whether or not somebody was involved in the War of 1812. And Joseph Matlack, I believe, was... Well, here's Joseph H. Matlack, registered civil, military. See, I don't know if this Joseph H. Matlack, I don't know what that $1 is. That's not, maybe. So you have to just kind of take your time and go through and look at these things and see if you can find out some more information about the person you're researching. Like, there are definitely, like, he's old enough to have been in the War of 1812. He could have been in the War of 1812. He would have been a little bit old. He could have been in the War of 1812. I think he was. He may have been. So let's look at him. 7th great-grandfather. Sons of the American Revolution membership application. He could have been in the Revolutionary War too. So let's see here. Uriah Norcross. Lieutenant William Norcross, descendant of William Norcross. So we back out of this. So here's William Norcross. He was, looks like he was in the War of the Revolutionary War, and he died in the war, looks like. He was a lieutenant. Can't make out the reference, but there's a page number 836. So this is just some of it, and you can see there's 99 more leaves that I have to go through to see if it fits. But there's stories, records, and there's other member trees that have been built that you can link off of for hints for where other people have done research. So if you turn it this way, though, this is kind of interesting. You turn it this way, see, there's me. There's Jack and Stasha. There's Anna. There's Lynn and her 2 kids. But when you look at all the brothers and sisters, like here's Grandmom's father. Look at all the brothers and sisters. I mean, look at all the brothers. He had one wife, had all these kids with. His wife had 1, 2, 3, 3 brothers and sisters. There's another, all these things. You can see the entire breadth of the tree when you dig into some of this stuff, because they have that many records. Like this Sophia Smith, I don't know. This guy, her father had 3 wives, and well, that's a lot of mouths to feed. So, but sometimes you can look at the dates and realize that they died young. Like 1753. What is this? This is the same guy. These 3 are probably the same guy. We just have 3 different death dates for him. Anyway, if you have some questions, I'll be happy to dig into it. But this is probably going to be easier because you can't really print this out. Like you see, it says print, but all that it does is it prints out this section of the tree that you're looking at. Can you see that? So it'll let you create a book, but they want you to pay for it, and it costs a chunk of money. So that's it.